If we look at our app, this is the UI for our remote. It's basically just a form, and each button submits the form. The name attribute for each button is unique, and that helps our controller determine which button's logic to execute. When we click the power button, for example, we see this flash message added by the controller. That tells us what happened. If we press channel up, channel down, and so on, we see the same corresponding messages. So this is super simple. The form just posts to the same page, handles the button logic, and then redirects us back with the flash message. Over in our code, open up source controller, find remote controller, and here we go. We're checking to see if the request is a post, and since each button submits with a name, this switch statement grabs that from the request. Each button is wrapped in a case, and each dump represents the button's individual logic. If a button isn't found, this will throw a 404. Then we add the flash message, do a bit of string manipulation to make the button name look nicer, and redirect back to the same route. Finally, at the bottom, if the request isn't a post, we just render index.html.twig. That's our remote template. When you have a big switch case statement like this, it's usually a good opportunity to refactor, especially as we add more buttons and logic. A great way to do this is with the command pattern. If you'd like a more in-depth look at this pattern, check out our Design Patterns course. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is create some commands, which will represent the buttons and house all their logic. In Source, let's create a new directory to better organize our code. We'll call it Remote, and inside, create another folder called Button. Perfect. Next, we need to create a new PHP class for each button. We'll start by creating an interface that each button will implement so our command handler can predictably handle them. We'll call it Button Interface. Inside, we'll write public function press, which will have no arguments and return void. In the tutorial directory, look at that. All of the button implementations are here and ready to go. We just need to copy all of the PHP files and add them to the button directory. Easy peasy. If we look at channeldown.php, we can see that it has the press method implemented and the same dump that we saw in our controller. All right, we have our commands. Now we need a command handler to take the button name and execute the corresponding command. For this, we'll create an object to act as our command handler. In the remote directory, create a new class called buttonRemote. I prefer to mark classes as final by default, removing it only if extension is needed. This isn't required, so feel free to leave that off. In our new class, create a public method press that will take a string argument, name, that represents the button name. This method doesn't return anything, so use void as the return type. Now we can create a constructor for this object. And inside, add private container interface container. Make sure you grab the one from PSR container. This container will store our button objects as key values, the key being the button name and the value being the button object. In the press method, we'll use this container get name to retrieve the button interface instance and call press. Right now, calling the press method will give us an error because Symfony doesn't know how to wire up this container. To help out, we'll use the AutowireLocator dependency injection attribute. In older Symfony versions, this was called tagged locator, but it was renamed in Symfony 7.1 to be more consistent with other attributes. The first argument on the attribute will be an array with the button names as keys and their corresponding class names as values. Symfony will convert these into the actual button instances when building the container. The rest of our buttons will look very similar. Channel down button class, volume up button class, and volume down button class. Ta-da! Our command handler is ready. Now we need to replace the big switch case statement in our controller with this service. Back in our remote controller.php, after injecting the request, let's inject button remote. Since the controller is auto-wired, Symfony will inject this automatically. Down here, copy this line to get the button name and paste it above. Below that, write remote press button. Now we can remove this entire switch statement, but we still need to address cases where a button isn't found. Copy this line here, delete the switch statement entirely, and wrap this press method in a try catch block. Move remote press button into the try, and below, this will catch not found exception interface. Paste our code inside, and done. So if container interface get doesn't find a command for the button name, it will throw this exception. Finally, we can add the previous exception to the 404 for better debugging. Our controller is much smaller now, so let's test it in our app. If we press the power button, power pressed. If we press the channel up button, channel up pressed. Everything seems to be working. If we check out the profiler, we can see that the dump message is still there, and now it's coming from the correct button implementation. Sweet.